Hello and welcome to Movies You Miss podcast. I'm V.
And I'm John.
And this is episode 65.
Indeed it is. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're ready for a creepy good time today.
Very creepy.
Definitely. And I know you hadn't seen my pick this week. Your pick was already creepy. I think mine kind of took the cake on creepy.
It absolutely did. I feel like this is a good episode that could have been in October, which is fine because if we could be having October temperatures right now, it'd make me very happy.
Yeah, I'm kind of down with that too.
So us and everyone else listening can go ahead and use this episode as an escape from the summer heat if you're experiencing that too. So just like we always like to do, let's use this episode as a bit of an escape and talk about stop motion animation.
Hell yeah. But before we get into this Henry Selick-esque episode of awesome stop-motion animation, we do like to discuss the movies that we saw in the last week. And V, I believe we both saw films this week.
We certainly did. But let's talk about what you watched first.
Okay. Well, you saw one of them already. My wife and I finally, over the last week, did get to see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold, starring Harrison Ford.
Can't wait to hear what you thought about it.
Yeah, I did post a reel, so for those that are on the Instagram and Twitter and whatnot, you may have seen the reel already. I give the movie a solid B. V, I remember you gave it a B+. I think the movie overall was very enjoyable, very good action. It had the feel of the first three back, whereas in the first 10 minutes of Crystal Skull, there's something wrong, and it's...
Your wife made you rewatch that movie last week, didn't she?
She did, unfortunately, yes. And I had not seen it in probably... since theaters, so it's been many, many years. And it was weird. The opening just felt really, really off, and the rest of the movie just didn't have the right tone and feel to it for me. However, this one, Dial of Destiny, just completely brought it all back. And holy shit, that de-aging of Harrison Ford...
that was so cool.
Was so badass, and the cool thing is, apparently they shot all that footage with him this age, and they just went through all the footage over the last however many years at Lucasfilm, and they pieced together his face to look young again, and I can only imagine how that can fuck with your head if you're the age of Harrison Ford now, and you're sitting there watching this movie, and you're like, I do look good.
Yeah, well...
Now, granted, of course, he does look good. He walks around with his shirt off, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. How the hell do you look like that at this age? Congratulations.
I know. When I watched the movie, I was like, Harrison Ford at 80 is in better shape than me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I looked down at my big bag of popcorn and the butter dripping from my chin, and I was like, God damn, I'm only 37. Congrats, Harrison Ford.
And for those of you who haven't seen any of the behind-the-scenes stuff or haven't read about the de-aging process,
oh yes,
I just wanted to explain it a little bit to our audience because unlike some other de-aging that has been done, most famously in the new Star Wars movies, the kind of face swapping, so as you may know, they CGI'd Princess Leia because unfortunately Carrie Fisher had died and things like that.
Right.
This was very different.
Yeah.
And much better.
It really was.
Yeah, and so, as you said, they took all of the footage from Lucasfilm. So any Lucas feature film that Harrison Ford has ever been in, so think from American Graffiti through Star Wars through Indiana Jones, etc., etc., they have all of that film digitized. They literally used a computer to go through every single frame of Harrison Ford ever and map it to the scene in Indiana Jones. So it's not some CGI wannabe making his face kind of like in Tron, right? This is actually Harrison Ford's face frame by frame, and they take every single expression Harrison Ford has ever had on film and map it as Harrison Ford is talking and scowling or laughing in the de-aging scene. So it really is his face. It was so cool.
It really was, yeah. Overall, though, definitely a great movie. I applauded when a certain character showed up. I didn't necessarily like the woman from Fleabag in this movie. I kind of feel like any British actress can be that character. No offense to her. I also was not a big fan of Fleabag, but that's neither here nor there. And personally, I did not need a Short Round 2.0.
Right.
But... Okay, thank you. God, that's literally been on my shoulders. And I've talked to other people about the movie. I'm like, I did not need a Short Round 2.0. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, thank God I'm not the only one.
No,
I literally, watching the movie, I'm like breaking up. I shouldn't have done this during the movie, but I'm sitting there like, okay, this is how the movie could have actually been a little bit better without this character.
Mm-hmm.
But again, more power to that kid for being in the movie, and I'm sure he had an absolute blast.
Yeah, and one thing I had wished that had happened, unfortunately, this movie was filmed before the resurgence of Ke Huy Quan, winning the Oscar and everything. But I thought it would have been so dope when Harrison Ford was talking about meeting a friend who's a scuba diver who owns a boat.
Oh, that would have been so badass.
Please be short round, please be short round, please be short. And it wasn't. The actor who was his friend was awesome, and that was
a cool little Easter egg.
It was, and it was a great scene, and I was happy. But I was like, shit, if they had filmed this more recently, I bet they would have gotten Ke Huy Quan back in there, and it would have been so dope.
It would have been pretty badass. But yeah, overall, very enjoyable movie. I would see it again. I would definitely add it to my collection. And on my reel, I mentioned the order of movies for me, and I know a lot of people will give me shit for this, but I really don't give a shit because it's the prequel to Indiana Jones's movies. Temple of Doom first, Raiders, Crusade, and now Dial of Destiny for me. So that's the order of Indiana Jones movies, in my opinion.
Terrible take.
Yeah, it is what it is. We watched all of them, and Temple of Doom is still my favorite one. I do like Last Crusade, and I love Raiders, but Temple of Doom, I think it's just because it's so fucked up. Like, it is like, it's really a fucked up movie.
Scarring movie to me as a child.
It scared the hell out of me as a kid. The whole Kali Ma and the
ripping out
sacrifices
hearts
and everything.
No.
Yeah. But definitely enjoyable. Before that, the day before, actually, I went and saw the Patrick Wilson directorial debut of the 5th installment of the Insidious franchise. I like all the Insidious movies. The first 2 scared the living hell out of me. I love them. The 3rd and 4th are decent. They're not my favorite. This one was a nice way to tie in 1 and 2. There was some added family drama that I truly felt was completely pointless and a waste of a plot point in this movie. But overall, I would give the movie like a solid C+. It had some good scares. The cast was good. Everybody's back. So Dalton, if you've seen Insidious from the first one 13 years ago, he's now grown up and going to college. It's the same actor. And everybody's back. So I really liked that. And if you're a horror fan, give it a shot. I got to give a round of applause to Patrick Wilson because, again, it's his directorial debut, and I thought he did just a fine job with it.
I will take your word for it.
Indeed you will. And V, just like last week, you beat me to the theater again. Why don't you tell everybody else what you saw?
I sure as hell did. Yes, I was so excited. I got tickets for this showing, for this movie, over a month ago. Yeah. It's a fan screening. I got a commemorative poster and a commemorative pin.
So cool.
So excited and happy. I kept my poster perfectly straight the whole entire movie. It's great. But I went and saw Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 in IMAX.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, good God, IMAX. I'm so excited anytime I have a good excuse to go see something in IMAX. It's just so much better.
Hell yeah. I can't wait to see it in IMAX next week.
And I'm really conflicted on how I feel about this movie.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I love McHugh, Christopher McQuarrie, the director and writer. He's been partnering with Tom Cruise for 15 years now. As everyone who listens to this podcast knows, through the creation of this podcast, I have realized how big of a Tom Cruise fan I am.
Yeah.
I never realized that before starting this. And I love the Mission Impossible series. I do think overall they are more consistent and better than James Bond.
Yes.
James Bond is way too hit and miss at this point. I loved all the actors in it. It's just, God damn it. There were a couple things in it that really pissed me off. There were a couple of unnecessary plot points. There was this background story that I didn't understand why they put it in there other than for maybe some extra drama, but it just came across as melodrama.
Interesting.
I walked out going, shit, it was not as good as Fallout, and I feel like I'd been so excited for this movie, I maybe had hyped it up too much, but the stunts are still absolutely incredible. The action sequences are great. There's a whole train sequence the last 20 minutes of this movie that is really rad. Nice. And I was so happy to see all those stunts on the big screen on IMAX. Tom Cruise learned how to do speed fly paragliding in the last year before filming this movie that I hadn't even read yet. And that's an incredibly dangerous sport, similar to like base jumping. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to pick this up. And it was literally just a couple minute scene that was a blip in this movie. I'm like, fuck, dude, you risk your life for like this little thing. But it's Tom Cruise. Of course he did. And so I would actually give it a solid B. It's not terrible. It's not like MI2 or anything. It's not a bad movie, but it's not something that captured me the way Maverick did last year.
Interesting.
It did not live up to the expectations that I had. And I had watched the entire Mission Impossible series before this movie premiered this week.
Yeah.
So I was ready to go.
Wow, interesting. I wonder if with part 2, a lot of what you're saying will come to light and everything will wrap itself up in a nice way. We'll see.
I hope so. I really do. And that's why I don't know how to feel about this movie, because of the fact that it's a part 1.
It's a part 1. Sure.
They can wrap things up really nicely. Maybe as people start watching this movie, there will be a lot of audience reaction that they will hear, and they'll be like, well, we're going to edit this a little differently now before it comes out in June 2024. So maybe that'll happen. Right. We'll see. There's been, as many people know, there have been a ton of very positive reviews. I definitely recommend the movie, especially for anybody who's seen Mission Impossible movies before. It's a great action movie. It's a great summer blockbuster movie. And just for me, as big of a fan of the Mission Impossible series I am, it's the first movie since number 2 that hasn't gotten better since the last one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we shall see.
So I can't wait to hear what you think, too.
Yeah, I will definitely let you know. I just wanted to give you this bit of info before we get into our stop-motion animation episode. I have worked with Isai, the villain in this movie.
You have? He was so...
Many years. I've worked with him for many episodes of NCIS Los Angeles, yes.
He was so fucking evil.
Yeah, he's a pretty badass guy, though.
I love him.
He's a really nice fella.
Yeah, he's a really good actor. He actually recently talked about the importance of theaters and going to the movie theater, which I loved that interview. But I was actually introduced to him in the movie La Bamba.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so I was introduced to him there. And I've seen him over the years in a lot of different things. He's a great actor. He was really good in Mission Impossible. So that's awesome to hear that you've worked with him and that he's a good guy.
Yeah, very, very fun dude to be around on set with.
Well, again, I look forward to your opinion on Mission Impossible. Hopefully we'll talk about it in next week's episode.
Indeed we will.
This week's episode started with John's pick, and I then found a movie to complement it.
Yeah. As
is becoming more and more frequently the case here at Movies You Miss podcasts, there are several similarities and coincidences with whatever movie one of us picks to complement the other's choice.
Yeah, that's been happening over the last several weeks also, and I think that's kind of hilarious that it's not intentional.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome.
Definitely.
And so this week, I just picked a stop-motion animation feature to complement yours, but it also happens to be directed by Henry Selick. So that means that this episode is a Henry Selick episode.
Apparently it is, yes. And for those that don't remember Henry Selick's name, we discussed him in the very early ons of this podcast when I chose the film Monkey Bone with Brendan Fraser and Rose McGowan and Bridget Fonda.
Which I hated.
You hated. And it still makes me laugh, so I still like that movie.
And Henry Selick has also directed some other fantastic movies that John will get into. But first, why don't we go ahead and start with your pick?
Definitely. I'm excited to get into this because this movie, actually, I did not see in theaters. I bought it blindly. I didn't know it was based on a Neil Gaiman book. I actually, at the time, only knew that Henry Selick directed it. Dakota Fanning was a voice in it, along with Ian McShane and Keith David. I'm talking about the 2009 stop-motion animation masterpiece, Coraline, ladies and gentlemen.
And you're not using that term ironically this time.
No, not at all. Not at all. This movie, based on a book by Neil Gaiman, he, oddly enough, was sitting down to write a new story and wanted to type Caroline, but he typoed himself. And Coraline came out on his typewriter, and instead of changing it to Caroline, he kept it Coraline because he wanted to know what's going to happen with Coraline. So now we have this story of Coraline. Oddly enough, when Henry Selick bought the rights with the studio to make this movie into a screenplay, he really took a lot of liberties with it, and in a strange way, this actually is Neil Gaiman's favorite adaptation of anything that he's written to this day, which I think is pretty awesome.
You know what I love about Neil Gaiman is that people can take major liberties with his works in order to put them to screen, and he has not had a problem one time with that.
Exactly.
He's so chill.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You know, your work is being adapted, and there's other ideas that can spawn from the story that you've already created, and that's one of the things that I liked the most about Game of Thrones was because, you know, they were so ahead of the books, and George R.R. Martin was like, fucking, yeah, I think that makes sense. And
the
so of
series
course everybody has a
sucked
lot
after
of
they passed
problems.
the books. Yeah.
That's all I hear. I never read the books, but I also never did read Coraline. My wife has actually read it. And again, I did not see this movie in theaters. I bought this blindly because I wanted to check it out in 3D. This movie is voiced by Dakota Fanning, Keith David, Terry Hatcher, Dawn French, Jennifer Saunders, Ian McShane, John Hodgman, and Robert Bailey Jr. A little bit of breakdown of what the story of Coraline is about. Coraline is an 11-year-old with blue hair, and she's got rompers, and she's an uprooted preteen in this new city in Oregon. We find out that later on, this movie's actually set in Ashland, Oregon, and the reason for that is because there is a major Shakespeare festival that goes on in Ashland, Oregon, and we'll get into the reason why there's the particular setting of this movie pertains to the Shakespearean festival. So Coraline is, like I said, she's uprooted. Her parents bring her to this place called the Pink Palace. They are both writers for this horticulture magazine, and they're working on their catalog for the next issue. And Coraline is bored to tears. She has no friends. She doesn't know what is really going to happen to her at this point in life. She's lonely. She wants the attention of her parents as an 11-year-old. Of course, we're always starved for attention at that age. And she's driving her parents pretty much up a wall with the fact that she's so bored. So her parents kind of suggest, why don't you walk around this Pink Palace and start writing notes about, what you find. She starts taking notes like, old creaky stairs and leaky windows. And all of a sudden she's outside and she's using this dowsing rod to help her find an adventure and help her find this well that she's heard about on the property. And this is when we actually meet Wyborn, and Wyborn was a character completely created by Henry Selick for this movie. He did not exist in the book. Yeah, so he ends up being kind of Coraline's friend, and we find out that he's got a grandmother that he lives with, and as they're talking, we find out that his grandmother had a twin sister that just kind of vanished one day, and she was never found again. And his grandmother really doesn't like to talk about it, but, that's all he's ever really heard about the Pink Palace, which is where everybody now currently lives.
Which is basically an old Victorian house in the middle of nowhere that has been split up into 3 or 4 apartments?
3 or 4 different apartments, yeah. I mean, why not utilize the space, of course? And the very cool thing is, in just a little bit, we'll get into the other tenants of the Pink Palace. And another reason why I love this movie so much, because every character is so different and so eccentric, but there's a lot of humanity in this stop-motion animated movie, Mm-hmm. So at one point, Coraline is in the kitchen with her mother, and her mother is really just not paying attention to what Coraline is saying. Coraline's trying to drop these bombs on her, like, "Mom, I almost died the other day. I got poison oak on my skin. I'm really bored and I don't have anything to do."
I almost fell down a well yesterday, Mom.
Uh-huh.
I would have died.
That's nice.
So, can I go out? I think it's perfect weather for gardening.
No, Coraline, rain makes mud. Mud makes a mess.
But Mom, I want stuff growing when my friends come to visit. Isn't that why we moved here?
Something like that. But then, we had the accident.
It wasn't my fault you hit that truck.
I never said it was.
I can't believe it. You and Dad get paid to write about plants, and you hate dirt.
Coraline, I don't have time for you right now. And you still have unpacking to do. Lots of unpacking.
That sounds exciting.
Oh, some kid left this on the front porch.
And she goes, some kid around the corner dropped this off for you. And she opens it up, and it's a note from Wyborn saying, hey, check out what I found in my grandmother's chest of drawers. And it's a doll that looks like Coraline, but with button eyes. So a little creepy, and Coraline's like, ooh, a little me. So she starts carrying this little me around and doing a little bit more exploring. And of course, after time and spending time with Coraline, we realize that she really has quite the imagination, and she really is starved for attention as a preteen. And she kind of starts to wish her parents would be a lot more fun and a lot more respectful towards her and her time, and the fact that they've now just uprooted her and they're so busy with their work. And, again, absentee parents, we've talked about this trope before.
They do really suck.
They do kind of suck a little bit. Her mom more than I think her father.
Agreed.
Her father, kind of does what he can to give her a little bit of attention, but he's also kind of just like, let me work, like, please just leave me alone. What did the boss say? He's like, what did mom say? Just like any time growing up, he's like, hey, Dad, can I have this candy bar? What'd your mother say? She said ask you. It's like, oh, okay. So Dad's like, you know what? Fuck it. Have the goddamn candy bar. Like, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, but the mom, she actually kind of shits on Coraline and says kind of nasty things to her, like, and she kind of blames Coraline for stuff, or just really doesn't appreciate the fact that she's a parent, and
right.
It seems like Coraline is just a nuisance to her, and she makes it very well known to everyone, including Coraline, which is super shitty.
Yeah, very much so. And again, that's one of those things that, as an adult now, of course, I don't have a child, but, I have animals, and they all have their needs, too. And, they get bored, too, and they want attention. And, V, you know which one I'm talking about. He's just constantly wanting the attention. And you're just like, look, dude, okay, here's the attention. Leave me the fuck alone. And that's what both of these parents do. So it's completely relatable, like in any scenario, even if you're not a parent. I get it, like you just want to be there for them, but at the same time you want them to entertain themselves, and that's just
that's why
how
you should
life
have
goes.
Siblings.
Exactly. And actually, another reason why Wyborn was created for this movie was because originally in the story, Coraline talks to herself majority of the time, like narrates her own life. So they wanted her to have somebody to talk to instead of being this, narrator of this movie in a stop motion adventure.
Can't really translate on screen as well.
Who knows? Maybe. Let's see it in the pseudo-universe. But I like the way that they incorporated Wyborn and incorporated the way that, this doll shows up.
Oh, yeah.
So getting a little bit more back to the story before I do spoil it, because this can be an easy spoiler movie for a lot of people. Even though you've seen the trailer, at one point or another, Coraline is so fed up with mom and dad and the fact that they just will not give her this attention or buy her the gloves that she wants or let her wear the certain different colored school uniform for her new school, that she wishes that she had a different family and a different life. And at one point or another, when she's asleep, these mice lure her to this hidden trap door in her living room that she found earlier that she had her mother unlock, which was a deal that she made with her mother. It's like, if you unlock this, I'll leave you alone. So she unlocks it, and it's a brick wall, so there's nothing there. So, of course, Coraline's like, well, god damn it. Later on, she's asleep. Mice show up. They lead her through this brick wall, and I love this sequence because it's so colorful and so vibrant and so lucid dream-like. I feel like we've all had a dream where we've definitely been almost floating and, like going into somewhere where we are going to be treated the way we want to, and, everything's going to go right for us because it's a dream. Of course, it's that alternate reality that our subconscious has created for ourselves that we are experiencing while we're asleep. So she ends up in this other world where mom is there, but she's not mom. She's mom with button eyes. She's a little bit prettier. She's a little bit nicer. She's cooking. She's humming. Dad's there. He's a musician. He's not bent over a computer writing this catalog for horticulture, and he tells her about this song that he wrote, which is such a fucking awesome sequence of not only stop motion animation genius, but just like so much fun and really lures you into the world of like, oh man, Coraline's where she actually should be right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mom? What are you doing here in the middle of the night?
You're just in time for supper, dear.
You're not my mother. My mother doesn't have buttons?
Do you like them? I'm your other mother, silly. Now go tell your other father that supper's ready. Well, go on. He's in his study.
Hello?
Hello, Coraline. Want to hear my new song?
My father can't play piano.
No need to. This piano plays me.
Making up a song about Coraline. She's a peach, she's a doll, she's a pal of mine. She's as cute as a button in the eyes of everyone who ever laid their eyes on Coraline. When she comes around exploring, Mom and I will never
sorry, but she said to tell you the food's ready.
Who's starving? Raise your hand. Hey, ho, ho.
So after Coraline gets into this other world and she meets other mother and other father, she also meets other Wybie, and she meets this cat that actually can talk to her, which is also kind of awesome. And the cat is voiced by Keith David, who I've had the immense pleasure of working with for several days on a project many, many years ago. And the rest of the movie after that is Coraline moralistically being torn with which version of her life she wants to continue living in. If she wants to live in the real world that's desolate and boring, mom and dad are busy, don't have time for her, and she's got one friend, Wyborn, or does she want to go and live in other world where unfortunately she needs to make a sacrifice to stay there, and she's going to be completely full-bellied with incredible food and cake and snacks by other mother, and she's going to be serenaded to by other father. She's going to have a garden that looks exactly like her, and that sequence, good God almighty, when she gets into that little grasshopper helicopter with other father and he shows her the garden that he's been building and it illuminates, and it's like that moment in Avatar when the sun goes down on Pandora and everything becomes translucent and just like super vibrant and beautiful. Oh, just awesome. So, and Coraline is torn, because she goes back and forth often because, of course, she's got to make an appearance with real mom and dad. And then she also wants to go back and be with other mother and father because they're treating her like the queen that she feels that she is at an 11-year-old age. So it really is a lot of that childhood angst, a lot of that want for attention from your parents, what you would imagine your parents would do for you if they had the time and the energy to actually express all of those things to you in that other realm, And so I think Coraline, while I also don't think Coraline is very much a kid's movie, it has a great fucking message. Beyond the animation being absolutely stunning, and we'll get into the technical aspects of it very soon, but I just got the Steelbook on 4K, and I rewatched it several weeks ago, and then I rewatched it again for this podcast, and I fall in love with this movie every single time. The animation is spectacular. The story is great. The voice cast is spot on, and it's a completely relatable story, and I love that about it entirely.
And it's the stuff of nightmares.
And it is the stuff of nightmares. Maybe V's nightmares and other people's nightmares. Of course, it's a creepy-ass movie. There are moments in this movie that you're really just like, good God, this is PG. But, that's the beautiful thing about animation is they went there and, they weren't afraid to. And like I said, we'll get into the technical aspects of it shortly. But V, I'm curious what you thought about it as a whole, because I know this was your first time around.
I really enjoyed it, especially the technical aspects of it. I love stop-motion animation. I mean, even Pinocchio that we talked about last year, neither of us really enjoyed it, but we appreciate it for what it is.
Yes.
So I always try to watch stop-motion animation films that come out. I did really love this movie as a whole. It is creepy as shit.
Yeah, it is.
But I do like creepy things. And when I'm in the mood for, a creepy, twisted story, I would totally put this on. So
absolutely.
It's one of those movies that I would certainly want to be in the mood for when I watch it again. But I will be watching it again.
Oh, awesome. That's good to hear.
And I loved the music.
The soundtrack is as haunting as it is gorgeous, almost like the Fountain soundtrack. And the opening soundtrack, like the opening music
Sequence.
of this movie.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's crazy because you don't know. I really did not know what to expect with this movie at all. I truly don't even know if I saw a trailer for it. I just was like, Henry Selick, Monkey Bone, Nightmare Before Christmas. Awesome. I'm in. And going back to some of these characters, we mentioned her mother and her father. Her mother is voiced by Terry Hatcher. Her father is voiced by John Hodgman. If anybody doesn't know him by name, don't feel bad. I don't think a lot of people do, but if you've ever seen the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC commercials, he is the PC. He's also in my earlier pick in She's Out of My League. He plays the boss at TSA for Jay Baruchel's character. And I mean, the guy is in Eastbound and Down. He's in so many things, and he's always very entertaining to watch. And we have these other two ladies, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible. They are two just hoity-toity, uptight, hilarious women that have done nothing but been on stage since they were however years old. And that's one of the main reasons why this movie is actually set in Ashland, Oregon, is because Miss Speak and Forcible were Shakespearean actresses. So tying in the Shakespearean festival that this city in Oregon has every year. And if you listen to the dialogue that they have during a specific sequence, they're very, very in tune with like the critics and the structure and pathos of like how a stage play should go. You see them in the other world on top of their real world, and their other world is, back when they're young and spry and kind of sexy. And then we see them now in Coraline's real world, and they're completely dumpy, completely just like, have a nice caramel, darling. Like, we'll read your tea leaves. And they have all of these Scotty dogs running around their house. And I always loved that too. Their introduction was like 4 Scotty dogs with the fucking teeth like showing up and everything like that. So funny.
Well, and the other version of them, that play that they put on is so creepy too.
Oh, it's very, very
and
creepy.
That was the moment I really decided that this movie should have been PG-13.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because they talk about how big one of them's breasts are and how big that they're completely overeating at the buffet and shit. Like, I like that whole maritime sequence, and then of course they break into their trapeze act, and it's just. But again, this is stop motion animation. This is not digitally animated. This movie took 18 fucking months to shoot. And every week, they had 35 animators on this movie. And in any given week, an animator would produce, now get this shit, an animator would produce between 2.2 seconds and 6.5 seconds a fucking week on this movie. Absolutely insane. So much meticulous time put into making this movie.
We've talked about it before, but I will say it again. Animation and stop motion takes way too much patience for me.
Oh,
that's why I'm so impressed with the medium.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've done my own stop motion in the past. I used to, take my Star Wars toys and my Independence Day toys and do little stop motion things and then fast forward it and see how it looked. Of course, it looked like shit because I didn't have the budget that, Henry Selick had for Nightmare Before Christmas. But the fact that it literally is done by hand, by frame, by millisecond is just mind-boggling. And it really
impressive.
It is absolutely impressive. Especially because Coraline, they made 24 different puppets for her, and they all were between 9 and 10 inches tall, and all of the locations were hand-built, and all completely created, and all of the expressions, all of the dialogue, they had over 150,000 different faces and mouths. So they could actually fucking make this movie, and they could actually look so that these characters could look like they were actually talking. That's one of the things about animation that still blows me away. Even hand-drawn animation Disney movies. Like, how do they animate the dialogue? And they just do it flawlessly in Coraline by hand. It's amazing.
Yeah, just remembering that it's dubbed over and that the mouth movement matches what people say. And they're doing it in a minuscule way, not even real time. That's just so impressive. And
it's madness.
And like you said, the voice cast is awesome. I love that Miss Spink is played by Jennifer Saunders.
Yes.
And for anybody who knows Absolutely Fabulous, she's Edna.
I gotta watch that one. I've never seen it.
Oh, classic UK comedy series. So good. And she was also the fairy godmother in Shrek 2.
Oh, okay. I don't like that movie.
I actually really liked number 2. But
maybe I should give it another shot. It's literally been since it came out that I saw it.
Yeah.
But I also didn't think that the first Shrek held up when I watched it about a year ago.
That's true.
So I don't know if it would. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But then the best part is that the woman who plays Miss Forcible is Dawn French. And
yes,
she and Jennifer Saunders were in French and Saunders, another UK show for
no shit
years and years and years.
Oh my gosh, that's
very
amazing.
Famous UK show.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's badass.
Yeah,
the chemistry between them, even as dolls, I'm just like, it's perfect.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
They've had that show going on for near on 30 years, off and on.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense why they recorded all their dialogue in the same audio booth at the same time with each other.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. And then for Dawn French, just for a lot of people to recognize who she is the fat lady in the portrait in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that either. That's awesome. This moment cracks me up is when Miss Forcible is walking up to Coraline with her tray of old candy, and she goes, "Oh, go on, have one." I just love that moment. It's so hilarious, and the way she's walking and swaying, and the way her face is just lit up, but she's also blind because Spink is like, "You're blind as a bat, Miriam." It's so fucking funny. I love it so much. This ended up being the first stop-motion animation film to be shot in complete 3D, which is awesome.
Ooh.
And I really hope that when it's re-released in August for a Fathom event, it will be in 3D. If it's not, I'll be disappointed, but I might still go because I love this movie, and I've never seen it in the theater at all.
Yeah, I think you have to go. And I believe it's early August, like August 12th that's happening.
Yeah, very early August.
Correctly. Yeah.
So we've discussed Miss Spink and Forcible, Mom and Dad, and YB. Now on to one of the most crazy characters in all of Coraline, Mr. Bobinski. Mr. Bobinski lives upstairs.
Loved
He is he's so great. He is voiced by Ian McShane. And it's kind of cool because Ian McShane has actually done a lot of adaptations from Neil Gaiman because he actually played Mr. Wednesday in the American Gods series on Starz. And I read American Gods, and I abso-fucking-lutely love that book. That was a killer novel. And I also read Everywhere. So those are the only two Neil Gaiman books I've actually ever read in my entire book reading career. But American Gods was fantastic.
Read The Sandman next.
I've heard that one's a good one too.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel. It's amazing.
All right, well, maybe that'll be on the list of things to read. But I've definitely enjoyed Gaiman's work quite a bit, especially because I love Stardust.
And Ian McShane is also very recognizable from being Al Swearingen in the HBO series Deadwood.
Ah, yes. Also, the proprietor in the John Wick movies.
The Hotelier. That's right.
The Hotelier. There you go. Thank you. Yes. So Ian McShane plays a character named Mr. Bobinski. He is a very interesting fellow. He wears short shorts and he's very top heavy. He is called a drunk by Coraline's mother. We end up finding out that he actually is not a drunk. He's just he's a showman. He actually is working on a theatrical production with his mushkas. And Coraline's like, mushkas? Like, she doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And the reason why she actually meets Bobinski is because a lot of his mail has been showing up on her door, and it's cheese samples. It's rare cheese samples. And that's when we find out that he's this showman. He's doing the show with mushkas, which we end up finding out are mice. He's trying to put on this mouse circus. So he really is, he's very eccentric. He's very boisterous. He's very out there.
Famous jumping mouse circus not ready. Little girl.
Circus? Oh, I brought this for you.
Novice here.
Huh?
New cheese samples? Yeah. Very clever, using this mix-up to sneak my home and pick at mushkas.
Mushkas?
The mice! Here.
Oh, sorry. I'm Coraline Jones.
And I am the amazing Bobinski. But you, call me Mr. B, because amazing, I already know that I am.
He calls her Caroline all the time, and one of my favorite lines in this movie is, "The mice say, your name is Coraline, not Caroline at all. I don't even trust these mice anymore," or something like that. I love that shit, because her name is Coraline, and all she does with Miss Spink and Forcible early on is continually correct them that her name is Coraline. And Miss Spink is just like, Caroline! It's just so fucking funny.
And a fun tidbit for folks to know is that in John Wick 4, Ian McShane is 80 years old.
Oh my God.
And he's still kicking
his character,
ass.
Or he's actually 80 years old?
In real life, Ian McShane turned
Lord.
80 last year when they were filming that movie.
That is incredible. I love Ian McShane in Hot Rod with Andy Samberg. I think that is one of the most hysterical movies I've ever seen in my life.
I have never seen that movie.
Oh, I referenced Hot Rod in my John Wick review because of the stairs sequence where John Wick keeps getting thrown down the fucking stairs. There's a moment in Hot Rod where Andy Samberg's character falls this epic, most ridiculous fall through this forest, and that's what it reminded me of. That's why I said that John Wick gave Hot Rod a run for its money.
I have seen that clip on YouTube before. I didn't know where it was from, but I know that clip
so
is
hysterical.
hilarious.
He's dancing in the forest, and then he just slips and falls for like 3 fucking minutes.
It is.
It's like,
It's
oh,
really
that's
funny.
where they got the idea for John Wick 4 down the stairs. Or The Exorcist, because it kind of looked like The Exorcist stairs, too.
Or the Slinky in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Now, Babinski, like we said, he's boisterous, he's out there, he's a showman, he's this, that, and the other. I did not obviously notice this bit of detail in this movie until watching the making of and reading a little bit more about the production of this movie. Babinski is wearing a medal around his neck, and he is wearing a medal that says that he was awarded this medal because he was part of the Chernobyl nuclear cleanup crew. And that is actually a real medal that was given out to guys that were a part of the Chernobyl nuclear cleanup crew. And that was the only time ever in human history that people were awarded a medal for being part of a nuclear cleanup crew.
Jesus.
So it kind of makes a little bit sense why Babinski's a bit loose in the fucking head. So awesome. The voice sessions actually took place in late 2008. This movie was released in February of 2009. The budget for this movie was pretty big. It was $60 million.
Whoa!
Which, yeah, is very, very intense.
Well, it was 18-month shoot.
Yeah, definitely. And again, everything was handmade. Like everything. Like I said, 24 different puppets for Coraline. All of her wardrobe was created. She had to go through wardrobe every day. And the crazy thing that I learned about making this movie was that the production design and the wardrobe were being created at the same time. There wasn't a whole lot of leeway for them to actually sit down and figure out color schemes. So there would be a lot of times where wardrobe just would not fit the color scheme of the room, and they would have to change her wardrobe. The behind the scenes on how this movie was made, I am not going to be able to do it justice. It really needs to be watched, and you just need to absorb the amount of manpower and hours and dedication and love and blood and sweat and tears and long-ass days that brought this movie to life. And it is so flawless, and we've said it before, it's impressive, it's amazing, it's colorful, it's scary, it's funny, it's relatable. I mean, it's literally everything.
It's everything except appropriate for kids.
Exactly. Yes, I would say if you've got I would say like 11 could start because
Hell
Coraline
no,
is 11 years old.
Showing
No,
this movie
I would give
to
it.
my
I would.
I
would.
I'm not showing
would.
this movie to my 11-year-old niece.
I would. I'd show my 11-year-old nieces,
Teenagers.
and then I would tell my sister-in-law that we watched like Blues. Whatever, some Blues Clues or some garbage.
So you don't take the blame when the niece starts having nightmares?
Nah, I probably would have to. So like I said, this movie had a $60 million budget. 500 people over the course of 4 years helped put this movie together. We mentioned that it had 18 months of principal photography over the course of several different sound stages all across Oregon, because Leica, the studio that produced it, is based out of Oregon.
Oh.
Now Leica, if you have heard the name beyond Coraline, they also produced a magnificent animated feature called Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yep.
That ended up being actually the longest running animated stop motion feature. Coraline was the longest one, then Kubo came along and Kubo took the reign of longest stop motion animated feature. Yeah. The U.S. gross for Coraline was $75.2 million.
Aw.
Not great.
No.
The worldwide gross was $124.6 million. Did pretty good worldwide.
Yeah.
And we've discussed why movies get missed, and we discuss why sometimes people just don't see movies. And I got to tell you, I don't think this movie came out at the wrong year. I think the year was right for it. I just think that it was a bit intense for, like you said, younger audiences. And it was a young adult novel, and we've all seen Nightmare Before Christmas, and that one's pretty creepy too for being a PG-rated Disney movie.
But it doesn't hold a candle to Coraline. I think what they should have done, and I think it had a similar problem to Pan's Labyrinth. What they should have done is made this a PG-13 movie, marketed it and released it in October, and really pushed this like teenager to mid-20s range of audience members, and actually released trailers that showed the creepiness factor.
Sure.
And I think it would have done better.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And again, I did not see it in theaters. So for whatever reason, it wasn't drawing me to see it in theaters. And of course, every time I watch it now, I'm like, I should have seen this movie in theaters, because it's a masterpiece of animation, color, story. The soundtrack, like we mentioned, definitely creepy. I love this movie, and I will watch it over and over and over again. I think in the last, let's see, it came out in 2009, so it's a 14-year-old movie. I've probably watched this movie a grand total of 30 to 40 times.
Whoa!
I've watched this movie a lot. I love this movie. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it too. And I hope our audience, if anybody has seen it, also is a fan. It's just a wonder of animation. And Henry Selick really just knocked it out of the park. And like we said, Gaiman was completely game with all of the changes that Henry Selick had for the story in this movie to make it somewhat more relatable and just an all-around crazy adventure. And I love this movie. I can't say it enough.
I'm really glad you introduced it to me because all I knew about this movie was it was the creepy button eye movie. It's the only thing I've ever known. And it's actually really great. I think it was just really not marketed correctly. I think that a lot of people misunderstood what this movie was.
Sure.
And then all they heard was that it was super creepy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
And instead, I think this is a really interesting story wrapped in a very beautiful package.
Yeah.
I would certainly recommend it.
I'm glad. So, V, here we go. We're going to play our favorite game. This movie came out in 2009. We actually have not discussed the year 2009 on my end.
Sweet.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited because there were some movies that year. I'm curious if you can tell me the number one movie of 2009. It is a franchise movie. It is the third of now 5 or 6. There is one in theaters now. Last week, we talked about this franchise because I said that I wasn't going to see the one that's currently in theaters now.
Oh, God damn it. Is it another Transformers movie?
It is, unfortunately.
Oh, shit.
It was Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
That
Revenge
sucks.
of the Fallen. Yeah, that was number one. I did see it, and I didn't like it.
Duh.
Yeah.
Because it sucked.
It certainly did suck.
Wayne's World quote.
Yes, indeed. For those that have seen Wayne's World, V and I did just watch that one last weekend, which was a great rewatch. I hadn't watched the first one in a long time. The second highest grossing film of 2009, another franchise film. I believe this one actually was the number 5 of the franchise. The ending had 2 parts, set in England.
Harry Potter?
Harry Potter, but which one?
Well, if
number
it's
5.
number 5, then it's Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, then number 4.
That would be Goblet of Fire.
Oh, then number 6.
That would be the Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, for crying out loud, that's the one. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. That actually has my favorite wand battle with Voldemort and Dumbledore in the Ministry of Magic. That's is actually such a killer sequence. Number 3 highest grossing film, a Pixar movie, which I actually discussed very recently because right before Elemental, we got a short with with these 2 characters. Yep, Up was the 3rd. Number 4, another franchise movie. I think this one was the 3rd one. It was a Twilight movie, New Moon. I'm not going to have you guess that one.
That's the second one.
Okay, fantastic. The second one. The number 5 highest grossing movie of 2009 before it took global box office records, the first Avatar, which you and I did end up seeing together in the theaters. The number 6 highest grossing film, a fantastic comedy, still the best of the 3, The Hangover with Bradley Cooper, Zach Galifianakis, and Ed Helms, and Justin Bartha. Number 7 highest grossing film, Star Trek, the first one, the first J.J. Abrams revamp with Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana. Number 8, Monsters vs. Aliens, a fantastic animated feature film, which we will definitely discuss on this podcast because I love that movie. Number 17, a movie that makes me laugh every time I watch it, but it's so awfully bad. Paul Blart Mall Cop, the first one with Kevin James. Number 23, highest grossing film, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the first one. I like that movie quite a bit. I did go to the midnight screening in 3D with my buddies. We got really, really stoned for it. Number 25, highest grossing film, Inglourious Bastards, my favorite Quentin Tarantino film, starring Michael Fassbender and Christoph Waltz and Brad Pitt. Number 27, Best Picture winner that year from Danny Boyle, called Slumdog Millionaire. We have 37, highest grossing film, Gerard Butler and Katherine Heigl in a sex comedy called The Ugly Truth.
which is really good.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious. I am a big fan of that movie, as is my wife, which I thought was great. The 42nd highest grossing film, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, and Abigail Breslin in Zombieland. The 43rd highest grossing film, scratching the top 50, my pick this week, Coraline, directed and written by Henry Selick. Number 44, Benjamin Button, The Curious Case of, with Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett. Number 47, the Michael Jackson documentary, This Is It, which was absolutely fucking fantastic. Number 48 that year, Paul Rudd and Jason Segel in I Love You, Man. Number 57, Sacha Baron Cohen in the ridiculously ridiculous movie Bruno. If you've never seen Bruno, you're not missing a thing, but if you have, you know what you saw when you saw that movie. I worked on the advertising for that movie, and I can't tell you how many penises I looked at while doing the trailers for that fucking movie. Number 68, highest grossing film, the third, yet the prequel to the Underworld series Rise of the Lycans, which I think is also a great prequel. Number 74, one of my favorite horror movies, which I think we'll discuss this October, Drag Me to Hell from Sam Raimi. Number 80, Zooey Deschanel and Jim Carrey in Yes Man. Number 90, The Reader with Kate Winslet, which was an Oscar winner for that year.
Oh, I loved her dress when she won that Oscar.
Oh, I don't remember the dress at all. I just remember The Reader and Kate Winslet. Number 91, highest grossing film, Zooey Deschanel again with Joseph Gordon-Levitt in 500 Days of Summer. I love that movie. It is a heartbreaker, but it is a fantastic movie because we've all been there. And number 93, wrapping up the year of 2009, highest grossing film, Men Who Stare at Goats, starring Jeff Bridges, George Clooney, and Ewan McGregor. That is the year of 2009. That is my pick of Coraline. Thank you, V, for enjoying the movie. I'm glad that it was a good discussion, and I'm glad that you learned some stuff about the production of this movie. And that wraps up Coraline. And now, V, I think we can stop and go and 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 stop and go into yours now. What do you think? Stop motion animation, everybody.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Let's get into it.
Yes, I think so. Thank you so much. As we mentioned, this is another stop-motion animation movie directed by Henry Selick. This is the 1996 movie, also based on a book.
Yes.
This one happened to be written by Roald Dahl. This is James and the Giant Peach.
Ooh, peachy.
Which I hadn't seen in a couple years, and I'd forgotten how creepy and adult-themed it was.
Oh, really? I watch this one every now and then. My wife is a big fan, so we watch this one around every October also.
Oh, okay, great. Well, for those of you who have either not read the book or watched the movie, or just want a little refresher on what this is all about, James Henry Trotter is a sweet boy in England who has a very loving family. His parents are great. We see them having a picnic on the beach. They seem like wonderful people, not like Coraline's parents.
Definitely
They're actually attentive and loving, but unfortunately, they get gobbled up by a rhino.
Yeah, they do.
So random, but so fitting for one of Roald Dahl's stories.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, he has to go then live with his two aunts, Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge.
Yeah.
Who are basically two of the worst women on planet Earth.
It always ends up working out that way for a little British boy.
It really does. And so they completely abuse and exploit him. They rarely feed him. They make him do all his chores. They call him all sorts of terrible names and just basically treat him like crap.
Yeah.
Poor little boy. And he is pretty miserable. And one day while he's working out on the property, a mysterious man comes to the wall.
Oh, yeah. Who played that mysterious man?
Pete Postlethwaite.
Hey, we know him.
We certainly do. We're big fans of him on this podcast. And he offers James crocodile tongues.
Yeah.
And I love his whole explanation of what they are.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, don't be frightened, James. I mean you no harm.
How do you know my name?
I know more than just your name. What would you say if I were to tell you that the answer to all your troubles is right here? Inside this little bag.
Hey, that's my...
Of course it is. Go on, James. Have a look. There's more magic in them things than in all the rest of the world put together.
But what are they?
Crocodile tongues.
Tongues?
1,000 long, slimy crocodile tongues, boiled in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and 20 nights. Add the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, the beak of a parrot, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Stew for a week, and then let the moon do the rest. Have 'em. And marvelous things will happen. Things even you never dreamt of.
Like what?
Well, you'll never be miserable again. And you are miserable aren't you, James? You weren't meant to be, you know. And that place you're dreaming of, it's not as far away as you think.
So James now has this wonderful gift of crocodile tongues, but unfortunately on his way back up to the house, he trips and falls. And they all burst out of the bag, jumping in every direction, and he loses them all. And it's so unfortunate. One of them happens to jump into the roots of a tree that's this dead, gnarled tree on the property, because the whole property is dark, dank, and horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And this crocodile tongue enchants this tree, and what it does is grows this massive peach, bigger than a car, almost the size of the house. And what do Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge do? Well, they exploit the hell out of this too, and decide to build a fence around it, and charge people tickets to go and see this massive, magical, eighth wonder of the world peach.
Yeah, pretty much.
A few days later, James is being tasked with cleaning up the whole area where all of the tourists and looky-loos have been, and he needs to go and clean up all the garbage. He's so starving, he reaches in and pulls out a piece of this peach, and when he takes a bite, a crocodile tongue happens to jump in right at that moment.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. The peach then opens up for him, and he crawls inside, and this is where he goes through a transformation. And this is where the movie transitions from live action, because this movie starts as a live action movie.
Yes.
And transitions into stop motion animation.
Indeed.
James finds himself inside this massive peach with a bunch of bugs that have also been enchanted.
Yeah.
And they also hate Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spider. They know how horribly they've been treating James. And they all want to escape, and one of the things that James' father had talked to him about was New York City and how dreams come true there, and that's where they wanted to go before they died. And so James still has this travel booklet for New York City, and he wishes to go there, and that's where all the insects get convinced to go as well, because New York City lines up with all their dreams too.
Right.
They all work together to break this peach free of the tree. It rolls down the mountains to the cliffs of the coast and lands in the ocean.
Yeah.
The movie then is a grand adventure of James and his new bug friends trying to get from England to New York on this giant magical peach.
And what fun it is, really.
It is, and it's such a wonderful fantasy from a book that gets translated so beautifully on screen, similar to Coraline.
I haven't read James and the Giant Peach since I was a kid, and I remember when this movie came out, kind of like with The Nightmare Before Christmas, my parents wouldn't let me see it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, looks too creepy was the excuse or reason for it.
It is a little creepy, not as creepy as Coraline.
Definitely.
But there are
Yeah.
some darker tones and themes to this movie, especially with the aunts and the way his parents died, of course.
Oh, yeah. Which actually, that sequence where his parents die is pretty trippy. My wife has this movie on Blu-ray. I bought it for her when we started living together. It's one of her favorite movies, and we sat and watched a lot of the making of, and I just was like, wow, it's similar to Coraline, and this one was almost a full 15 years before Coraline. Also, just a few years after The Nightmare Before Christmas. So, in a very awesome way, we're watching Henry Selick develop his craft at stop-motion animation directing over the course of, the last 35 years. And Coraline is, in my opinion, out of all three of them, I would have to say that might be his crowning achievement. But I do like all three of the movies just about as equally.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that you like James and the Giant Peach as well.
Oh, yeah. Big fan.
I think Henry Selick and his team are also really great at casting. You talked about that
Yes.
a little bit with your movie. My movie's the same way. It has a fantastic voice cast.
Definitely.
However, unlike Coraline, this movie is a musical.
Yes, it is.
It has multiple musical numbers, all very well done, and do a great job moving the plot along and keeping things light.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually left this out before because I didn't think it actually would be relevant, but now that you mention it, Coraline originally was going to have 10 different songs in it by a band called They Might Be Giants. And there were two. Yeah, there were two songs that we got, and one of them was Played by Other Father, which is a song that I constantly sing while I'm cleaning my house, oddly enough.
However, like Coraline, this movie has a great voice cast too.
Yes.
So Paul Terry plays James, this young boy from England. Super cute in this movie. It's the only movie he ever did, though.
Is it really?
Yeah. He
No
hasn't
way.
had many credits. He hasn't really acted since then. However, all of the adults in this movie are pretty recognizable. So we'll start with the aunts. Joanna Lumley plays Aunt Spiker. Funny enough, she's the other half of Absolutely Fabulous.
Oh my God. Wow. What a crazy tie-in for all of these movies today. This week, even. That's awesome.
She plays Patsy in Absolutely Fabulous.
Well, now I got to watch Absolutely fucking Fabulous. I've never seen it.
It's hilarious.
You mentioned it to me like earlier today before we got on. You're like, oh, they're all in Absolutely Fabulous. I'm like, okay. I'd heard of it, but I'd never watched it in my life. So, but I do love me some British humor. And I introduced you to one of my favorite British humor movies, actually.
That's right, you did. And yes, I'm a big fan of British humor as well. So find
Sweet.
Absolutely Fabulous. It's streaming and give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
She's also in Eurotrip, which is a movie coming up.
She is in Eurotrip. Oh my gosh. She's the hostel. She works in the hostel, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You're right.
Oh, so awesome.
Good.
So great.
She's also in The Wolf of Wall Street.
She is. And that
she
that
plays
scene
Aunt
with
Emma.
her- yeah, that scene with her and DeCap on the bench is so funny. Is he hitting on me? It's like, is she fucking hitting on me? Oh my gosh.
She is also, funny enough, in The Sandman. The
really?
Netflix series based on the Neil Gaiman book.
Oh, very cool.
Or graphic novel, I should say. And she plays Lady Joanna Constantine in the Sandman series.
I heard that was actually pretty good.
It was fantastic. Miriam Margolis plays the other aunt, Aunt Sponge.
Yes.
She is in one of your very early picks.
Yes, she is.
Because she is in Romeo and Juliet. She plays Juliet's nurse.
Yeah.
She's also Professor Sprout in Harry Potter.
That's right, she is.
She's also in The Sandman.
Oh, wow, no kidding.
She plays Despair, yeah.
Very cool.
And I never knew this. Do you know that she's in Mulan?
Is she a voice in Mulan?
She's the voice of the matchmaker.
No way.
Yeah.
Really? That's
Yeah.
cool. I did not know that at all.
I learned that researching this movie. It made me really happy.
That's awesome. Mulan. She's that one? Really? That's her?
Yeah.
Wow. They really stretched for the fucking voice casting in that movie, didn't they?
I mean,
no offense to her, of course.
No, of course not. But come on, Donny Osmond was in it. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And wasn't Harvey Fierstein as the other guy?
Yeah.
Like,
Pete Postlethwaite, as we mentioned,
Yes.
is the mysterious man in this movie. He's also in Romeo and Juliet
hell yeah, he is.
because he's the priest.
Yes.
He's also the lawyer in The Usual Suspects.
Oh yeah.
He's in The Town.
Oh hell yeah. He's great in that movie. Everybody's great in The Town.
Everybody's great in The Town. He's in Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
Oh hell yeah. Roland.
He's in another one of your picks, Dragonheart.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he's the priest in Dragonheart.
He's in The Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, never saw that one.
And he's also in Amistad.
Never saw that one either.
What? You never saw? Oh, God, Amistad was
No,
really good.
never did see
Wait,
Amistad.
I'm sorry. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. Are you required to watch
Yeah,
it?
no, I am. Yes, it was one of those movies I just hadn't gotten around to.
It's brutal but important and
I've
very
heard
good.
Yeah, I've heard it's great. I know Anthony Hopkins in it, Jaimin Hansu. It was Jaimin Hansu's like break. Like,
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, McConaughey's in it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got to check that one out.
My new game is having you guess voice actors.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah.
I am going to have you guess the insects.
Oh, okay.
The centipede
Yes.
was played by a man who is in one of your picks.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi pick. It's a pick by your favorite director.
So sci-fi pick, favorite director, it's either a Spielberg or a Danny Boyle movie.
I will tell you it's a Spielberg movie.
Okay, Spielberg movie, sci-fi.
He also appears in Spielberg's creature feature movie that takes place in the water.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss?
Yes, Richard Dreyfuss is the centipede.
In Jaws. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So Jaws and
Really?
Close
Wow.
Encounters of the Third Kind.
There we go.
Was
Okay,
your sci-fi
that's
pick.
right. Yeah, that was the one I picked because I definitely did not pick Jaws. Okay, cool. That's right. Close Encounters, Richard Dreyfuss. Awesome. Almost stumped me on that one.
Well, it's a new game. It's all right.
It is.
He also stars in Mr. Holland's Opus.
Great movie.
He also is in The American President, one of my picks in the future.
That's right. Yeah, he is.
My name is Bob Rumson, and I'm running for president. God, I love that movie. All right, so the Grasshopper is played by a man who you will recognize, but I didn't know him by name. I don't think you will either, so I'll just go ahead and say it. His name's Simon Callow.
Oh,
I know you haven't seen this movie yet, but he's in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He plays Gareth.
okay.
He's also in Shakespeare in Love.
Ah.
He's Tinley
I only saw that movie once. I couldn't tell you who that
Oh,
was.
he's one of the constable guys where he's like, that woman is a woman.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice.
Tell your wife he is in the first couple seasons of Outlander. He's the Duke of Sandringham.
Okay.
He's also in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls.
Nice.
He's Cadby, the rich British bad guy.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Something wrong, Mr. Ventura? No, this is a lovely room of death.
So damn funny.
So good. Okay, back to the game. Mrs. Ladybug. She is a British actress who appeared in a very popular, long-lasting 90s sitcom
Okay.
that was about two brothers who were psychologists.
Oh, okay. Frasier.
Yep. So she.
Oh, Jane Leaves.
Yes, Jane Leaves. That's right.
Yeah.
She plays Daphne and Frasier.
I've met Jane Leaves before. She's awesome.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. I've been to the set of Frasier. I got to meet her when I was there.
Oh, very cool. Well,
Yes.
she is very successful in TV because not only was she a recurring actress in Seinfeld, she was
That's right.
Marla the Virgin in
Yes.
Seinfeld. She ends up sleeping with JFK Jr. It's a hilarious episode.
I know. That was so funny.
She also starred in Hot in Cleveland as Joy. And then more recently, she is in the show The Resident. That's been on ABC for a while.
Ah,
She
with the guy from Gilmore Girls.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
She plays Kit Voss in that show.
Ah, all right.
Okay, finally, Miss Spider.
Yes. Susan Sarandon.
Shit! I had to look that up. I didn't know who it was.
Oh, did you really?
I didn't recognize her voice. She
That
did a
was the
great
only one that
accent.
I knew for sure. Yeah, that was Susan Sarandon.
That's right. She starred in Your Pick, The Front Page.
Hell yeah, she did.
She also starred in The Client with Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh yeah, I never did see that one. That was supposed to be a good one.
It is good.
Based
90s.
on the John Grisham novel.
Yeah, good 90s action thriller for sure.
Grisham had a lot of 90s movies, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Pelican Brief.
Time to Kill.
The Firm. Of course, she also starred in Thelma and Louise.
Oh yes.
Dead Man Walking.
Oh yeah, with
Step-
Sean Penn.
That's right. Stepmom.
Oh, I did see Stepmom. I did not like Stepmom.
Oh, it's so trite. I hated that movie. She also stars in Enchanted, one of our
Yes.
favorite live-action / animated combo movies.
Hell yeah. She's in one of my favorite movies with Jude Law too, Alfie. It's a remake. I know there's a Michael Caine version from the
right.
70s, but I really liked the Jude Law Alfie. I thought that was a great movie.
I never
And
saw
she's
it.
also, we can't forget, she is Dammit Janet in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's right. And lastly, she also stars in Bull Durham, a baseball movie that you need to see because we have, of course, come to the conclusion that you are a fan of baseball movies, so you need to watch that one.
Yes. Yeah. We'll
You
see. I'll
totally
probably
are.
like that one and be like, I guess I do like baseball movies.
Exactly.
It'll be the third time I say it on this podcast.
See? And she's in a movie that I think I'm going to pick probably this October, The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, yeah, please do. I got to watch that one. I would like to watch that one.
Okay, great. Well, then maybe I'll pick fun October movies and you'll pick
Oh, I'm getting you this
hardcore
year.
horror movies that are going to
I started you off hardcore horror last year with Hereditary, and then I went light for the rest, even though 28 Days Later is pretty intense. I'm going to get you this year.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Because there's a sequel coming out in September, and we'll probably have to do the original.
Well, one of
before
us is looking
I
forward to
watch
that then. All right, lastly, Earthworm. This man was also a star in one of your picks previously.
Oh,
Your pick was a fantasy movie.
Dragonheart.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wait. Is it Dennis Quaid?
He's British. He is in another one of your picks that has twins in it.
Is it David Thewlis?
It is David Thewlis.
No way. Oh, my gosh.
He plays the Earthworm.
Oh, that's cool.
He's Prince Einon in your pick, Dragonheart.
Yes.
He plays Professor Lupin in Harry Potter.
That's right. That's right.
He's also in the Sandman series.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Everybody's in that.
Every British actor was in that, apparently. He plays John Dee in the Sandman series.
Very cool.
He's also in the first Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, yeah, he is in Wonder Woman.
That's right. He plays Sir Patrick.
Awesome.
He's in your picked Legend, which stars twins Tom Hardy.
Yes. Oh, he's good in that one,
He's
too.
their lawyer, Leslie Payne.
Yeah.
And lastly,
Wow, yeah.
he co-stars with Brad Pitt in the movie 7 Years in Tibet.
That's right. He's his best friend in 7 Years in Tibet.
That's right.
Oh, man. I have not seen 7 Years in Tibet since I saw that movie in theaters.
Oh, that's
and
been a
I've
while
been
then.
wanting to rewatch it. Yeah.
Carrie Kirkpatrick is one of the writers on this movie. He also wrote The Spiderwick Chronicles.
Oh, cool.
The live-action Charlotte's Web that came out about 10 years ago.
With Dakota Fanning?
Shit, yes!
Yeah, look at that.
I guess more than 10 years ago now.
It was, yeah, a little bit.
He also,
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s, I think like 06 or something. He also wrote Over the Hedge.
Oh.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy screenplay.
Oh, awesome. Great movie.
Chicken Run.
No way! Oh, Chicken Run's great. And we're getting a sequel, apparently, too.
Oh, really? Well, he also wrote The Road to El Dorado.
Oh, that is a good movie.
Never saw it.
Oh, you know what?
Putting it on the list?
That's going on the list. Yeah, that's actually one of my wife's favorite movies, and when she turned me onto it, I completely fell in love with it. It's awesome.
He also wrote one of the best sequels ever made that is, in fact, better than the original, The Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, hell yeah. George C. Scott is the bad guy.
Such
that is
a good
great movie.
Mm-hmm.
With the bald eagle and the golden feather. Oh, man, that's a great movie. Miss Bianca and Bernard, Ava Gardner. So awesome.
And Jonathan Roberts is also a writer on this movie. He also wrote the small indie project in the 90s called The Lion King.
Oh, yeah. That was real small and real indie.
Yeah. He was one of the writers on The Lion King.
Fucking awesome.
He also wrote a movie that you recently talked about, The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, sweet.
And he also wrote that movie Dinosaur that came out in the year 2000.
Ah, Disney produced.
Yep.
Yes. I liked Dinosaur over The Good Dinosaur. I thought Dinosaur was a lot better. I didn't like The Good Dinosaur. And it's kind of crazy because I loved Elemental, and the guy that directed The Good Dinosaur directed and wrote Elemental.
Well, I actually have never seen either one of them, so I'll take your word for that.
You're really not missing anything on The Good Dinosaur.
As I mentioned, this movie was based on the book by Roald Dahl. For any of you who grew up in the 80s and 90s, you know that he also wrote The Witches, Matilda,
Hell yeah.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Indeed.
George's Marvelous Medicine, which is one of my favorites of his.
I've never heard of that one.
Oh, it's so good. He poisons one of his relatives who are treating him badly. It's pretty fantastic. Roald Dahl was always twisted.
Yeah, just a little bit. You know what's funny? I thought Coraline was based on Roald Dahl at one point when I first saw it. I was like, this has to be a Roald Dahl. And then, of course, it was Neil Gaiman, which makes sense too.
Yeah, those both would have made sense. And this film took 12 years to be produced and reach the screen.
Damn.
And Roald Dahl himself was actually convinced that it would not make a viable film, but with stop motion, it actually turned out great.
Oh, awesome.
And according to newspapers in this movie, the film takes place in 1949, for any of those who wonder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is so funny. Henry Selick initially considered doing the whole film in stop motion, but he decided to blend live action to cut down on costs.
No way.
Because live action is cheaper than stop motion animation.
Sure. And you know what's interesting that you say that? Henry Selick approached Neil Gaiman to make Coraline a live-action movie, and Dakota Fanning was already attached to the project. So when they switched it to being a stop-motion animation, Dakota Fanning thought she lost the job. But she was really worried. And of course, she was a young one back then. She was really worried that she had just lost out on a great project, and lo and behold, they turn into a stop-motion, and she gets to voice Coraline Jones, and here it is.
And it was filmed on 22 different sound stages.
Damn, that is nuts. Can we've seen sound stages. Those things are fucking huge. Like, how do you need that much space to make a stop motion animated movie?
That basically only takes place in 3 places.
One spot. Yeah, right?
The Peach, the Ants' Home, and one other place. And that's it. Yeah.
Same with Coraline in the Pink Palace or outside very briefly. And that's it. It's so crazy.
So funny.
It's just magic of movie making, everybody.
That's true. And for any of you who have seen James and the Giant Peach, you may have recognized a character in it when they dive into the icy water and the shipwreck.
Oh, yeah.
The captain of the ship is Jack Skellington, or at least his face.
Yeah, I like that. That was a really great nod back to the OG Henry Selick.
Which is funny because, as I mentioned, Susan Sarandon voices Miss Spider, who you knew right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
She was married to Chris Sarandon, who voices Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And the lyrics for the song Eating the Peach were actually written by Roald Dahl, which is really cool.
Oh, very cool. Hell yeah.
You may have recognized the voice of the man who sings the end credits song, because it's Randy Newman.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Hot off of working on Toy Story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Randy Newman did the score for this movie.
Very cool.
And that is James and the Giant Peach, directed by Henry Selick, produced and released in 1996. It had a budget of $38 million.
Oh, wow.
But unfortunately, it only made $29 million
Oh, yikes.
in the box office. I'm hoping that the DVD sales did well since it was 1996, or I guess VHS.
Yeah, DVD hadn't been
My
launched
bad.
yet.
But unfortunately, I couldn't find any numbers on that, so I hope that people give it a chance who maybe missed it the first time around. It currently is streaming on Disney+, so
Hell
it's
yeah.
very easy to watch.
Yes, and I watched my wife's Blu-ray copy.
So that is our Henry Selick stop-motion animation episode.
Yes.
John, would you watch Coraline with your grandma?
Oh, definitely. I probably did at one point or another. My grandmother, as the listeners and myself and UV now know, my grandmother was a versatile movie watcher. She liked the weird stuff, and she liked the bloody, gory horror, and this definitely would have been a movie my grandmother enjoyed, and I cannot truly remember if we did watch it together or not, but I know I told her about it.
I would not watch this movie with any kids that are not teenagers and above.
I would show my nieces this movie when they're about 11 or 12.
Hell no.
And then I would tell my my brother and sister-in-law what I did to my nieces.
Strongly disagree with that plan.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's creepy.
It is.
So let me put it this way. It's so creepy that I would suggest it to my sister Shannon, who likes creepy, twisted movies and Halloween, before I would ever suggest it to my nieces, who are 11 and 13.
Okay. I get that. I get that. And V, before I ask you the famous Movies You Miss podcast about your grandmother, Coraline is currently streaming on HBO Max if you'd care to check it out. V, would you watch James and the Giant Peach with your grandmother?
Oh, totally. It's certainly not as creepy as Coraline.
Definitely.
And I would actually recommend this to kids like 11 or 12 and above.
All right. Yeah, I get that.
I think that about wraps up this episode. John, you want to tell our audience what we're doing next week?
I do indeed. We're going to go French, everybody. This is going to be a solid foreign language film episode. I have chosen one of my most favorite feature films out of France, directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, starring Audrey Tautou and Matthew Kassovitz. This is titled Amélie. It is a fantastic piece of French cinema. It is available on Amazon Prime for $3.99. If you care to watch it and follow along with us, I will be watching my DVD copy. I can't wait to introduce V to this one because I know you have not seen it, V.
That is correct. And to complement that, the French movie I have picked is called The Untouchables. It stars Francois Cluzet and Omar Sy, and it is the original from the American remake called The Upside, starring Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart.
Oh, yeah. Never saw that one either.
That's fine because the French original is superior.
Oh, well, I'll bet it is. I can't wait to watch it.
I'm excited to introduce it to you, and you can rent it from just about any streaming service for $3.99.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in this week. We deeply appreciate you. We are getting close to 30 written reviews, so please take a moment to write a review for us on the Apple Podcasts app. If you own an iPhone, we deeply appreciate it. And once we get to 30, that's a big milestone for podcasts, so it's really important for us. And as we always say, just a sentence or two is all that's needed. No need to be Shakespeare here. And in order for your review to be valuable and appreciated.
Indeed. Thank you, everybody that continues to listen and hang out with us every week.
As always, you can follow us on all the social media platforms at Movies You Miss Pod, and we like to end our podcast with film is a form of art, and in art, all opinions are valid, except if you think
Henry Selick is Tim Burton.
Because of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Because of Nightmare Before Christmas and because of every stop-motion animation that looks like Corpse Bride and all that other stuff. Henry Selick and Tim Burton are two completely different people. They are best friends. They met at Cal Arts in Santa Clarita, California, but they are not the same person. They are completely different people. So if you ever say, Tim Burton directed Nightmare Before Christmas, expect a backhand.
From either one of us.
Now, I would never assault somebody, but I would. So just get it right next time.
And with that, bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.